The morning my son told me to stay away started like any other Monday in March. I was standing in my kitchen in Southeast Portland, humming an old Fleetwood Mac song while the chocolate chip cookies baked. The smell filled every corner of my small house, that warm, buttery scent that had always meant home, always meant love. I pulled the last tray from the oven, setting it carefully on the cooling rack. Perfect. Golden brown edges, soft centers. Benjamin's favorite since he was 7 years old. Tomorrow was Emma's 6th birthday. My granddaughter. My sunshine. I'd finished knitting her a purple scarf last night, her favorite color. It was folded carefully in tissue paper on the dining table, ready to wrap. The cookies were for Benjamin. He'd caught a cold last week, and I knew how much he loved coming home to fresh-baked treats. I'd made 3 batches, one for him, one for Stephanie to take to her office, and one for Emma's class party. My phone buzzed on the counter. I smiled, wiping flour from my hands onto my apron. Probably Benjamin sending his usual morning text, "Morning, Mom, how'd you sleep?" We'd texted every single morning for the past 12 years since he'd moved out at 23. I picked up the phone, still smiling. The smile died on my face. "Mom, don't come to our house anymore. We need peace. Please respect this." I read it once, then again. Then a third time, my vision blurring slightly at the edges. The words didn't change. My hands started trembling. I set the phone down quickly before I could drop it. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too hot. The oven timer was still beeping. I'd forgotten to turn it off. This had to be a mistake. Maybe he'd meant to text someone else. Maybe his phone had been hacked. Maybe I checked the name at the top of the screen. Benjamin Parker. My son, my only child. The boy I'd rocked to sleep every night for the first 3 years of his life. The teenager who'd called me crying when his first girlfriend broke his heart. The man who'd held my hand at his father's funeral and whispered, "We'll be okay, Mom. We have each other." That Benjamin was telling me to stay away. We need peace. As if I had been war. I sat down heavily on one of my kitchen chairs. The same chairs we'd picked out together when he'd helped me move into this house after the divorce. "Mom, you need comfortable chairs," he'd said. "You're going to be entertaining grandkids here someday." That was 7 years ago. My chest felt tight. I couldn't quite catch my breath. The timer was still beeping, shrill and insistent, but I couldn't make myself move to turn it off. I picked up my phone again with shaking hands. The text was still there. I started typing a response. "Honey, what happened? Did I do something wrong?" Deleted it. Typed again. "Benjamin, please talk to me. I don't understand." Deleted it. "I love you. Whatever it is, we can fix it." Delete. "Can we at least discuss this?" Delete. I typed and deleted 15 different messages. Each one sounded more desperate than the last. More pathetic. More like exactly the kind of mother a 35-year-old man would need peace from. Finally, I set the phone down and closed my eyes. The kitchen fell silent as the oven timer finally stopped. In that silence, I heard something. A quiet voice inside me, barely a whisper. "This isn't about you. This is about their choices." I didn't reply to the text. Instead, I stood up, slowly turned off the oven and covered the cookies with foil. Then I walked to my bedroom, lay down on top of the covers and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed twice more over the next hour. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. Not yet. Later that afternoon, I finally checked. The 2 new messages weren't from Benjamin. One was from Patricia, my next-door neighbor and closest friend since I'd moved here. "Coffee tomorrow. Haven't seen you in a few days." The other was from the pharmacy. "Your prescription is ready for pickup." Nothing from Benjamin. Nothing from Stephanie. Nothing from anyone who mattered. I opened Facebook, something I rarely did. Maybe I'd see a post that would explain everything. Maybe there'd been an emergency. Maybe I scrolled down. There it was. A photo from 2 days ago. Stephanie had posted it Saturday evening. The whole family gathered in their living room. Benjamin, Stephanie, Emma, and Stephanie's parents. Everyone smiling. Wine glasses raised. Emma in her pajamas, grinning with a missing front tooth. The caption read, "Family is everything, grateful for these moments." Posted at 7:43 p.m., Saturday night. I hadn't been invited. I hadn't even known they were gathering. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Emma was sitting on Benjamin's lap, her small arms wrapped around his neck. The same way she used to sit on my lap every Wednesday when I picked her up from school. Used to, past tense. because according to Stephanie's carefully selected pickup list at Meadowbrook Elementary, I was no longer authorized to collect my granddaughter. I'd discovered that 3 weeks ago when I'd shown up for my usual Wednesday pickup and the teacher had stopped me. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Parker," Miss Jennifer had said, her face flushing with embarrassment. "But you're not on Emma's approved list anymore. There must have been some mistake." There had been no mistake. Stephanie had removed me without a word. I'd waited in my car that day until Stephanie arrived, watched Emma run to her mother with her backpack bouncing. Emma had looked around searching for something for someone. For me. Then Stephanie had taken her hand and walked quickly to their car. Emma had waved at me through the window. I'd waved back, my throat too tight to call out. That was 3 weeks ago. Now this text. Now this photograph of a family gathering I wasn't part of. I sat in my living room as the afternoon light faded, the phone heavy in my lap. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. The cookies sat on the counter cooling, going nowhere. Tomorrow was Emma's birthday. I'd already wrapped her present, a beautiful hardcover edition of Charlotte's Web with color illustrations. Emma loved to read, or at least she used to love reading with me. Would she even get the gift now? Would Benjamin return it, unopened? I stood up, walked to the dining room, and picked up my car keys from the bowl by the door. Then I set them back down. No, whatever was happening showing up uninvited wasn't going to fix it. Not anymore. I remembered what Benjamin had written, "Please respect this," so I would respect it, even if it was killing me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that text message. "We need peace," as if my presence in their lives had been chaos, as if 40 years of love and sacrifice could be erased by 6 words. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed to understand. At 7:30 a.m., I called Benjamin's cell phone. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. "Hey, this is Ben. Leave a message." I hung up without speaking. Tried again at 8 a.m. Same result. At 9 a.m., I texted Benjamin, "I need to understand what's happening. Can we please talk?" The message showed delivered immediately. Then 30 seconds later, read. But no response came. I waited an hour, then another. By noon, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I tried Stephanie's number. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. She'd declined the call. "Stephanie, it's Carolyn. I'm not trying to intrude. I need to understand what I did wrong. Please, just 5 minutes." Nothing. By 2:00 p.m., I couldn't stand the silence anymore. I called Patricia. "Hello." Her warm voice felt like a lifeline. "Patricia, do you have time for that coffee?" "Of course, come over now. I just made a fresh pot." Patricia's kitchen always smelled like cinnamon. She was the kind of woman who kept homemade potpourri in bowls around her house and actually ironed her dish towels. At 63, she'd been widowed for 5 years and had filled her life with book clubs, gardening, and being the neighborhood's unofficial grandmother. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, honey, what happened?" I showed her the text. Patricia read it 3 times, her reading glasses slipping down her nose. When she looked up, her expression was carefully neutral. "Have you spoken to him?" "He won't answer. Neither will Stephanie." I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug she'd given me, trying to stop them from shaking. "Patricia, I don't understand. What did I do?" She sat down across from me, choosing her words carefully. "Did something happen the last time you visited?" "No, I don't think so. I brought over groceries last Tuesday. Their fridge was nearly empty. I could tell they'd been eating takeout. I just wanted to help." "Did they ask for help?" "Well, no, but what else did you do?" I thought back. I tidied up a little. The kitchen was messy, dishes in the sink, and I noticed Emma's math homework on the table. There were several wrong answers, so I suggested maybe she could use some tutoring. Patricia's expression shifted slightly. Not quite a wince, but close. I asked. "What's wrong with wanting to help my granddaughter succeed?" "Nothing's wrong with wanting to help," Patricia said gently. "But Carolyn, did you ask Stephanie if she wanted you to clean her kitchen?" "It was just dishes." "Did you ask?" I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. The truth was I hadn't asked. I'd just done it, like I always did. "Stephanie was exhausted," I said defensively. "She'd worked a double shift. Benjamin was dealing with some crisis at work. I was just trying to lighten their load." "I know you were." Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's what you do. You're a helper. But sometimes honey people need to figure things out themselves." Even if I can see a better way, Patricia's smile was sad. Especially then. That conversation stayed with me as I drove home, but it didn't explain the text message. Helping too much wasn't a crime. It wasn't a reason to cut your mother out of your life. Unless... I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a moment, engine still running. Then I got out, went inside, and headed straight for my bedroom closet. On the top shelf behind my winter sweaters was a cardboard box. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside were journals. 15 years worth of them, starting from when Benjamin had first moved out. I carried the box to the dining table and started reading. The entries were mundane at first. Benjamin came for dinner tonight. He seems happy in his new apartment. Helped Benjamin move furniture this weekend. His back was bothering him, so I did most of the heavy lifting. Then further in, Benjamin mentioned he might look at apartments in the Hawthorne district. I helped him search online and sent him 12 listings that seemed perfect. He seemed annoyed when I called to follow up. Not sure why. Later, Benjamin and Stephanie are talking about getting married. I'm thrilled, but concerned they've only dated 8 months. Is that enough time to really know someone? I mentioned this to Benjamin. He said I worry too much. And then, from 2 months before their wedding, helped Stephanie pick out bridesmaid dresses today. She seemed to want purple, but I gently suggested ivory would photograph better and fit the venue's aesthetic. She agreed, but seemed quiet for the rest of the afternoon. Hope I didn't overstep. I kept reading page after page, year after year. The pattern was there, clear as day, if I was willing to see it. Fixed Benjamin's resume without asking it had several typos. Reorganized Stephanie's kitchen cabinets while she was at work. So much more efficient now. Bought Emma a new bike for Christmas because the one Benjamin and Stephanie got her seemed too small. Paid their electric bill when I saw a past due notice on their counter. And then, from just 15 months ago, an entry I'd completely forgotten. Benjamin called today and said they need to establish some boundaries about my visits. I told him I understood that I'd be more mindful. But honestly, I don't know what he meant. I'm just being a good mother. I closed the journal slowly. My hands were shaking again, but this time for a different reason. The text message wasn't sudden. It wasn't out of nowhere. Benjamin had been trying to tell me for 15 years, and I hadn't been listening. 3 days after the text message, I still hadn't heard from Benjamin. Emma's birthday had come and gone. I'd left her present on their front porch at 6:00 a.m. Tuesday morning before anyone would be awake to catch me. It was gone by noon. No thank you text, no acknowledgement at all. I needed answers, but Benjamin wasn't going to give them to me. So I did something I'd never done before. I called Stephanie's mother. Janet Morrison was the kind of woman who intimidated me without meaning to. Perfectly styled gray hair, expensive clothes, a retired executive who'd spent 40 years in pharmaceutical sales. She'd always been polite to me, but distant. We'd never exchanged more than pleasantries at family gatherings. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. Hello? Janet, this is Carolyn Parker. I'm sorry to bother you, but I was hoping we could talk. A pause. About Benjamin and Stephanie. Something's happened and Carolyn. Her voice was gentle but firm. I think you should talk to Benjamin about this. He won't talk to me. He won't even answer my calls. Another pause, longer this time. I heard her sigh softly. All right. Can you meet me for coffee? Say Starbucks on Burnside in an hour? Janet was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. She'd ordered for both of us decaf lattes. She stood to greet me, and I was struck by how carefully she'd prepared for this conversation. Her face was kind, but guarded. We sat down and I got straight to the point. What did I do? Please, I need to understand. Janet wrapped her hands around her cup, studying me carefully. Carolyn, has Benjamin told you why he sent that text? He hasn't told me anything. He's ghosting me completely. Then maybe I shouldn't. Please, I heard the desperation in my own voice. I'm losing my son. I'm losing my granddaughter. I need to know why. Janet was quiet for a long moment. Then she set down her cup and looked directly at me. Stephanie feels overwhelmed by you. The words hit like a slap. What? She feels like you don't respect her as Emma's mother, like you're constantly hovering. I'm helping, I said. That's what grandmothers do. We help. Do they ask for help, Carolyn? Or do you just provide it? There was that question again, the same one Patricia had asked. I don't understand the problem, I said, feeling defensive. If I see something that needs doing, I do it. Is that so terrible? Janet's expression softened slightly. No, it's not terrible. But Carolyn, Stephanie told me you reorganized her kitchen 3 times last month. It was inefficient. It was her kitchen. Janet's voice was gentle but unyielding. You rearranged her spice rack without asking. You threw out containers she was using. You made decisions about her home without consulting her. I thought I was being helpful. I know you did. But Carolyn helpful would be asking, would you like me to help organize? Helpful would be respecting when someone says no. What you've been doing is taking over. I felt my throat tighten. That's not fair. Isn't it? Janet leaned forward. When was the last time you asked Stephanie about her day, her dreams, her thoughts on raising Emma? Or do you mostly give advice, make suggestions, point out better ways to do things? I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Because she was right. When was the last time I'd asked Stephanie anything personal? When had I last had a conversation with her that wasn't about Emma or the house or something I thought needed fixing? She's tried to talk to you, Janet continued, multiple times, but you don't seem to hear it. So they've had to resort to this. A text message, I said bitterly. 6 words to end 35 years of being Benjamin's mother. You're still his mother, Carolyn. They're just asking for space. By cutting me off completely. Janet's expression turned sad. I think by the time Benjamin sent that text, they were desperate. This wasn't their first choice. It was their last resort. I sat in my car for 20 minutes after Janet left, her words echoing in my head. Last resort, as if I'd been given chances and blown them all. I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through my text history with Benjamin. 3 months' worth of messages. Don't forget Emma has a dentist appointment Tuesday. I saw a great deal on organic chicken at Whole Foods. Want me to pick some up for you? Found a better car insurance rate for you. Can I forward the link? Emma really should practice her math facts more. Happy to tutor her if you'd like. Text after text after text. All helpful, all well-intentioned, all uninvited. I kept scrolling, looking for something, anything where Benjamin had asked me for advice, where he'd requested my help. I couldn't find a single instance. The realization hit me like cold water. I'd been offering solutions to problems that weren't mine to solve, providing services no one had requested, making decisions that should have been theirs to make, and I'd been doing it for decades. I thought back to Benjamin at 25 calling to tell me he'd found an apartment. That's wonderful, I'd said. Send me the address. I'll come look at it with you. Mom, I've already signed the lease. Without consulting me, Benjamin, what if it's in a bad neighborhood? What if the landlord is unreliable? Let me at least run a background check. Mom, it's done. I'm an adult. I can choose my own apartment. Of course you can, honey. I just worry. And then I'd shown up the day he moved in with cleaning supplies, shelf liners, and strong opinions about where he should place his furniture. The memory made me wince. I scrolled further back, to when he'd gotten his first job. Mom, I got the position. I start Monday. That's fantastic. Did you negotiate the salary? What about benefits you need to make sure they're contributing to your 401k? I handled it, Mom. But did you ask about vacation days, sick leave? Let me review your contract before you sign anything. I already signed it. Benjamin, you should have waited. What if... Mom, it's done. That conversation had ended badly. He'd been frustrated with me. I'd been hurt that he didn't appreciate my concern. Now, sitting in my car outside Starbucks, I finally understood. He hadn't wanted my concern. He'd wanted my trust, and I'd never given it to him. That night, I did something I should have done years ago. I made a list, not a shopping list or a to-do list. A list of every time I'd helped Benjamin and Stephanie in the past 6 months without being asked. It filled 3 pages. Financial. Paid their electric bill when I saw a past due notice, $187. Bought Emma a new tablet for school, $400. Purchased a new vacuum cleaner because theirs seemed old, $300. Loaned them $1, $200 for car repairs, never asked for repayment. Household asterisk. Reorganized their kitchen 3 times. Asterisk. Rearranged their living room furniture. Better feng shui asterisk. Bought new bath towels because theirs were threadbare. Asterisk. Replaced their dish soap with better quality brand asterisk. Cleaned out their garage without asking parenting. Told Stephanie Emma needed more vegetables in front of Emma. Suggested Emma's bedtime was too late. recommended different schools than the one they'd chosen, corrected Emma's behavior at the dinner table, bought clothes for Emma that I thought were more appropriate, career/life decisions, suggested Stephanie should quit her part-time job to be home more, found job postings for Benjamin I thought were better than his current position, recommended they sell their car and buy something more reliable, gave unasked for advice about their finances at least weekly. The list went on and on, 3 pages of interference disguised as love. I set down my pen and stared at what I'd written. Every single item was something I thought was helping, something I believed they needed, something I was sure would make their lives better. But I'd never once stopped to ask, do they think they need this? I made myself go back further, not 6 months, but 6 years, to when Stephanie and Benjamin had first gotten engaged. They'd been dating 8 months, young, excited, planning a small courthouse wedding. I'd been happy for them. Truly, I had been, but I'd also had concerns. Don't you think you should wait a bit longer? I'd asked Benjamin. Marriage is a big decision. You barely know her family. I love her mom. I know you do, honey. But love isn't always enough. What about finances? Have you discussed money? Children, where you'll live? We've talked about all of it. But have you really? Have you seen her in a crisis? Have you lived together? Maybe you should do a long engagement. Give yourselves time to... Mom, his voice had been tight. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you we're getting married. Of course, I'm just saying that a little caution might... I appreciate your concern, but this is my decision. I'd backed off then, or so I'd thought. Instead, I'd gone straight to planning mode. If they were going to get married, at least I could make sure it was done right. I'd pushed for a bigger wedding. Just family at the courthouse seemed so impersonal. Insisted on paying for a photographer. You'll regret not having proper photos. Bought Stephanie's wedding dress when the one she'd chosen seemed too simple for such an important day. Stephanie had accepted the dress with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You didn't have to do this, Carolyn. Of course I did. Every bride deserves a beautiful dress. I'd already found one I liked. But this one is perfect. Trust me. Trust me. As if my judgment was better than hers. As if she couldn't be trusted to choose her own wedding dress. I'd told myself I was being generous, loving, making up for the fact that Stephanie's family wasn't as financially comfortable as I was. But really, I'd been establishing a pattern, teaching Stephanie from day one that her choices weren't quite good enough, that I knew better, that I was in charge. The realization was like watching a movie of my life, but seeing it from someone else's perspective. Every scene I'd remembered as helpful suddenly looked different. The time I'd thrown out Stephanie's ratty dish towels and replaced them with new ones, those were hand-embroidered pieces from her grandmother. The time I'd bought Emma that beautiful pink bicycle for Christmas Benjamin, and Stephanie had already purchased her first bike. Mine made theirs look inadequate. The time I'd suggested Stephanie quit her job, she'd worked years to get that position. She was proud of it. But I'd implied it wasn't important. That being home with Emma was more valuable. That her career was secondary to her role as a mother. No wonder she felt disrespected. No wonder Benjamin had finally snapped. I put my head in my hands and let myself feel the full weight of what I'd done. I hadn't meant to be controlling. I genuinely believed I was helping, showing love the only way I knew how, through action, through fixing, through making everything better. But love isn't supposed to make people feel inadequate. Love isn't supposed to require someone else to be helpless in order to have value. And that's what I'd been doing for 35 years. I'd been so busy being helpful that I'd never learned to be supportive. There's a difference. Support means standing beside someone while they figure things out. Help means taking over because you don't trust them to do it right. I'd been helping Benjamin his entire life, and in the process, I'd never let him learn to help himself. I walked to the living room and picked up a framed photo from the mantel. Benjamin at age 8, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a trophy from his Little League team. I remembered that season clearly. He'd been terrible at baseball, struck out almost every game, came home frustrated and close to tears. Maybe baseball isn't your thing, his father had suggested. You could try something else, but I'd insisted. Parker men play baseball. You just need more practice. I'd hired a private coach, forced him to practice every afternoon, driven him to extra batting cages on weekends. By the end of the season, he was better, good enough to get that trophy for most improved. He'd smiled when they called his name. but on the drive home he'd been quiet. "What's wrong?" I'd asked. "You should be proud. All that hard work paid off." "I guess." "You guess, Benjamin, you won a trophy?" "I know, Mom, but I didn't want to play baseball. I wanted to join the art club." "Art club, honey, that's not—" "I know, it's fine." He'd looked out the window. "Thanks for the coaching." He'd never mentioned the art club again, and I'd never asked. I set the photo back on the mantel with shaking hands. All these years I'd thought I was being a good mother, the best mother, sacrificing helping, making sure my son had every advantage. But really I'd been suffocating him, teaching him that his choices weren't valid, his feelings weren't important, his wife wasn't capable, and now at 35 years old he'd finally had enough. We need peace, not from me, from what I represented, from the constant intrusion, the unasked-for opinions, the subtle message that he couldn't handle his own life. I looked around my living room at the quiet, empty house I'd filled with hobbies and activities meant to fill the space my family used to occupy. The knitting projects for grandchildren who were being kept away from me. The cookbook filled with recipes I made for people who hadn't asked for them. This was my life now, and I'd built it myself, brick by interfering brick. The question was, could I unbuild it? Could I learn at 67 years old to stop helping and start trusting? Could I give my son what he'd been asking for all along? Space to be his own person, make his own mistakes, live his own life I didn't know. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty: I had to try. Because the alternative was losing them forever, and that finally was unbearable enough to make me change. 1 week after that terrible text message, I woke at 5:47 a.m. to someone knocking on my front door. Not the doorbell. Knocking. Soft, hesitant taps that were almost apologetic. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. Who would come at this hour? The knocking came again. 3 short raps, then silence. I pulled on my robe and made my way through the dark house. Through the peephole, I could see a figure standing on my porch shoulders, hunched against the early morning chill. Benjamin. My hand froze on the doorknob. He'd ignored my calls for 7 days, sent no replies to my carefully worded text messages, let Emma's birthday pass without acknowledgement, and now he was here at dawn, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door slowly. He looked terrible. Hair, uncombed stubble on his face, dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. He was wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt and jeans, the same clothes I'd seen in Stephanie's Facebook post from yesterday. Had he been up all night, Mom? His voice cracked slightly. Can I come in? I stepped aside without a word. He walked past me into the living room, and I caught the faint smell of coffee and exhaustion. I closed the door and followed him. He was standing in the middle of my living room, hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking everywhere except at me. Would you like some coffee? I asked. My voice sounded strangely formal. Yes, thank you. I went to the kitchen, grateful for something to do with my hands. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the silence between us. Through the doorway, I could see Benjamin had sat down on the couch, the same couch where I'd rocked him to sleep when he was a baby. The coffee finished brewing. I poured 2 cups, added cream to his the way he liked it, and carried them back to the living room. He accepted the mug without looking at me. Thank you. I sat in the armchair across from him, cradling my own mug, waiting. The silence stretched out like a living thing. Benjamin stared into his coffee. I watched my son, this stranger who used to tell me everything, and wondered when the distance between us had grown so vast. Finally he spoke. Mom, about the message. I read it, I said quietly. I'm respecting it. He blinked, clearly surprised by my calmness. You are? Yes. I set down my mug carefully. I haven't called, haven't driven by, haven't shown up uninvited. That's what you asked for. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't expect— What did you expect, Benjamin? That I'd fight it, argue, demand an explanation. He had the grace to look ashamed. Maybe. I won't, I said, and I meant it. The past week of reflection had taught me that much at least. You're a grown man. If you need space from me, that's your right. The words hurt to say, but they were true. Benjamin stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Who are you, and what have you done with my mother? Despite everything, I almost smiled. Almost. Your mother is trying to learn, I said, though apparently I'm learning about 30 years too late. He set down his coffee mug and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Mom, I need to explain. About the text. About everything. You don't owe me an explanation. Yes, I do. He took a deep breath. We're having financial problems. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, that wasn't it. What kind of problems? The serious kind. His voice was hollow. We're $47,000 in debt. The number hit me like a physical blow. 47,000, Benjamin Howe. Credit cards. Medical bills from when Emma broke her arm last year. The car repair that turned into needing a new transmission. And then Stephanie's hours got cut at work, and I thought I could handle it, but the interest just kept adding up. His voice trailed off. He looked utterly defeated. My first instinct was to reach for my checkbook, to fix it, to make it go away. But I forced myself to stay still, to listen. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because you'd have fixed it. He looked up at me then, and his eyes were red-rimmed. You always fix it, Mom. And Stephanie said, she said either we handle this ourselves or she's leaving me. The room tilted slightly. Stephanie threatened to leave you because of me. Not because of you, he said quickly. Because of us. Because we've never had to be adults. Because every time we hit a rough patch, you swoop in and make it better. And Stephanie feels like we're not really partners, like we're two kids playing house with my mom as the safety net. I felt like I'd been slapped. I was trying to help. I know. His voice was gentle now. But Mom, we need to struggle sometimes. We need to figure things out on our own, even if we fail, especially if we fail. So the text message was my last resort. He rubbed his face with both hands. I've tried to tell you before, so many times, but you never hear it. You say I understand and then nothing changes. This was the only way I could think of to make you actually stop. The truth of it settled over me like a heavy blanket. Tell me, I said quietly. Tell me all of it. When did you try to tell me? Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. Then he started talking. At my wedding, he said. Remember my toast I thanked you for always being there even when I didn't ask you to be. That was a hint, Mom. A gentle one. I was hoping you'd hear it. I did remember. I thought it was sweet, appreciative. I'd completely missed the point. And when Emma was born, he continued, you stayed for 3 weeks. You were amazing cooking, cleaning, helping with the baby. But Stephanie told me later she felt like a guest in her own home. Like you were the mother and she was the incompetent teenager who couldn't handle a baby. She never said anything. She did, actually. She told you on day 5 that she needed to find her own rhythm with Emma. You said, of course, and then immediately took Emma from her arms because you thought you could burp her better. I didn't remember that, but I didn't doubt it was true. And last Christmas, Benjamin said, his voice getting quieter. Remember when you bought Emma that bike? She loved it. We'd already bought her one, Mom, a purple bike with training wheels. It was wrapped under our tree. And then you showed up on Christmas Eve with that expensive red bicycle. Emma saw it and wanted yours instead. She cried when we tried to give her the purple one. Stephanie spent Christmas night in the bathroom crying because she felt like she couldn't give her own daughter a good Christmas. The memory came flooding back. Emma's delighted face when she'd seen the red bike. How I'd felt so proud for making her happy. I'd never thought about the purple bike. Never asked if they'd already bought her one. I didn't know, I whispered. You didn't ask, Benjamin said. Not accusingly, just stating a fact. You never ask, Mom. You just do things. And they're good things, generous things. But they make us feel small, like we're not capable of taking care of our own family. Give me examples, I said. My throat felt tight, but I needed to hear it all. Every bit of it. Tell me everything I've done wrong. Benjamin looked uncertain. Mom, please, I need to understand. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. He pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app. Stephanie and I, we made a list, a few months ago, after a particularly bad week. You made a list of my failures as a mother. A list of times when help felt like interference. He scrolled through his phone. Mom, you're not going to like this. I don't need to like it. I need to hear it. He took a deep breath and started reading. Last month, you threw away Stephanie's cast iron pot, the one from her grandmother. My stomach dropped. That old rusty thing, it was falling apart. It was seasoned for 40 years. It was the last thing Stephanie had from her grandmother. She cried for 2 hours when she realized it was gone. I remembered that pot. Black heavy looked ancient. I'd assumed it was junk. You didn't mention it, I said weakly. Because we'd learned it doesn't help to mention things. You just defend your actions and somehow we end up apologizing to you. That stung. Mostly because it was true. Benjamin continued reading. 3 months ago, at Emma's school parent night, you told the teacher that Stephanie tries her best but sometimes needs guidance on how to help with homework. I was being honest. You undermined Stephanie in front of Emma's teacher, Mom. The teacher started directing all communication to you instead of to us. We had to specifically ask to be put back on the email list. I hadn't known that. Hadn't thought about consequences beyond being helpful. 2 weeks ago, Benjamin continued, you came over while Stephanie was at work. You reorganized her entire pantry and threw away 3 containers of food because they were past the date on the package. They were expired. They were beans and rice, Mom. Dry goods. The dates are just suggestions. But more than that, it wasn't your pantry to reorganize. Stephanie came home to find her kitchen rearranged, again, for the 3rd time that month. I thought I was helping her stay organized. She doesn't want your version of organized. For the first time, Benjamin's voice rose. She wants her version, in her house, which she pays for with her money from her job, the job I'd suggested she quit. And the money, Benjamin said, his voice dropping again. Mom, do you know how it feels to have your mother pay your mortgage without asking? To find a check for $1,500 in your mailbox with a note saying, saw your car needed work, this should cover it. I was trying to help you. It made me feel like a failure. His voice cracked, like I couldn't provide for my own family, like I was still a child who needed Mommy to fix everything. Stephanie said she felt like she'd married a little boy who couldn't stand up to his mother. The words hung in the air between us. Is that what she thinks? I asked. That you can't stand up to me? Benjamin looked down at his hands. She's not wrong, is she? It took me 35 years to send you one text message asking for space, and even then I couldn't do it face to face. We sat in silence for several minutes. The morning light was growing stronger, streaming through my living room windows. Outside I could hear birds starting their morning songs. The world was waking up while mine was falling apart. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I finally asked. Really tell me. Not hints, not gentle suggestions. Why didn't you sit me down and say, Mom, this is a problem? Benjamin laughed, but there was no humor in it. I did, Mom, multiple times. When at my wedding, I said I needed you to respect Stephanie as my wife and our household as separate from yours. You said, of course I will, honey, and then asked if you could have a key made so you could drop by with groceries. I remembered that conversation. I thought I was being helpful. When Emma was 2, he continued, I told you we needed to establish boundaries about parenting decisions. You agreed. And then at Emma's birthday party, you told everyone there that we were being too lenient and children needed firm discipline. I was concerned. And last Christmas, after the bike incident, Stephanie finally broke down and told you how much it hurt that you'd bought Emma a better present than we could afford. She asked you to please check with us before buying Emma expensive gifts. Do you remember what you said? I searched my memory. I couldn't find the conversation. You said, oh, sweetie, I'm Emma's grandmother. That's what grandmothers do. And then you changed the subject. Had I really said that? Yes, I had. You hear the words? Benjamin said quietly. But you don't hear what we're actually saying. It's like there's a filter in your brain that turns everything into, they appreciate my help, but are too proud to admit it. I never meant to hurt anyone, I whispered. I know, Mom. That's what makes it so hard. You do everything out of love, genuine love. But love without respect isn't really love. It's control. The word hit me hard. Control. I'm not trying to control anyone. Aren't you? Benjamin leaned forward. Mom, when was the last time you asked Stephanie about her day, her actual day? Not did Emma eat her vegetables or did you get the house cleaned? When did you last ask about her dreams, her job, her friendships, her interests? I opened my mouth, closed it. I couldn't remember. When was the last time you asked me a question that wasn't followed by advice? Benjamin continued. That wasn't secretly a setup to tell me what you think I should be doing differently. Again, I had no answer. That's control, Mom. Subtle, well-meaning. but control nonetheless. You show love by managing our lives, by making sure everything is done the way you think is best, and when we try to do things differently, you swoop in and fix it. Stephanie wants to talk to you, Benjamin said after a long silence. My heart jumped. She does. She's scared, but yes. She thinks if we're going to fix this, really fix it, you need to hear her side too. When today, if you're willing, she suggested meeting at the coffee shop on Division, neutral ground. He gave me a sad smile. She's been planning what to say for weeks. Weeks. Mom, we didn't send that text on a whim. We talked about it for months, went to therapy over it. Stephanie was ready to leave me if I didn't set a boundary with you. This was literally our last option. I felt sick. I almost cost you your marriage. You still might, he said bluntly. That's why we need to have this conversation. All of us. 3 hours later, I walked into Sterling Coffee Roasters on Division Street. My hands were shaking so badly I'd almost turned the car around twice. Stephanie was already there, sitting at a corner table with a journal open in front of her. When she saw me, she stood up, and I was struck by how young she looked. Only 31. Still so young. But her eyes looked old, tired, wary. Carolyn, she said. Thank you for coming. We didn't hug. The distance between us felt like a canyon. I sat down across from her. A barista brought over a latte Stephanie had already ordered for me. My usual. At least she'd noticed that much. I've been preparing for this conversation for 6 months, Stephanie said without preamble. She tapped her journal. I wrote everything down because I knew if I tried to wing it, I'd get emotional and forget what I wanted to say. Okay, I said. My voice sounded small. She opened the journal. Her handwriting was neat, organized. Color-coded tabs marked different sections. She'd really been preparing. I need to start by saying I don't hate you, Stephanie began. I know it might feel that way, but I don't. I respect you. I appreciate everything you've done for Benjamin and for Emma. But Carolyn, I need you to respect me too. I do respect you. Please, her voice was firm. Let me finish, then you can respond. I closed my mouth and nodded. You ask about Emma constantly, Stephanie said, reading from her journal. Her health, her school, her diet, her activities, her friends. You have opinions about all of it. But Carolyn, you never ask about my day, my health, my job, my dreams, my opinions on raising my daughter. She looked up at me then, and I saw tears in her eyes. Do you know what I do for work, Carolyn? I blinked. You work at, is it a pharmacy? I'm a pharmacy technician at Walgreens. I've worked there for 4 years. But do you know that I just got promoted to shift supervisor, that I'm studying for my certification exam, that I'm applying to pharmacy school next year? I stared at her. I didn't know that. Because you never asked. In 4 years of knowing me, you've never once asked about my career goals. You suggested I quit my job to be home with Emma. You called it part-time work, even though I work 35 hours a week. You implied it was a waste of time when Emma needed me. I thought that being a mother was my only important role, Stephanie finished. That my career didn't matter. That my ambitions were less valuable than being home to make fresh cookies for Emma's after-school snack. She flipped to another page in her journal. Do you know why Emma's birthday party bothered me so much last year? I shook my head, afraid to speak. You invited 12 kids. I'd planned for 8, our close family friends, but you went through Emma's class list and invited everyone because the more the merrier. I'd budgeted for 8 kids, bought supplies for 8 kids, planned activities for 8 kids, and then 12 showed up because you'd sent invitations without telling me. I wanted Emma to have a big celebration. It wasn't your party to plan, Carolyn. It was mine. I'm her mother, and you made me look incompetent in front of a dozen parents when I didn't have enough party favors. When I'd planned simple games, but you showed up with an expensive bounce house you'd rented. When you brought a 3-tier cake from a bakery after I'd spent all morning making Emma's favorite chocolate cake with strawberry frosting. Her voice broke on the last word. Emma didn't even touch the cake I made, Stephanie whispered. She wanted the fancy one from the bakery, and all the other moms said, Carolyn, this is amazing, while my cake sat there, untouched, like it didn't matter, like I didn't matter. I felt tears streaming down my own face. Stephanie, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. You never think about how your help affects me, she said. You think about how it helps Emma, how it helps Benjamin. But I'm not just a vessel for raising your granddaughter. I'm a person, a woman with thoughts and feelings and dreams and abilities. She turned to another page. The doctor visit, she said, when Emma had that ear infection last month. Do you remember what you said to the pediatrician? I racked my brain. I'd gone with them because Benjamin was at work. I asked about antibiotics. You told Dr. Williams that you weren't sure Stephanie was administering Emma's previous medications correctly. In front of Emma, in front of the nurse. You questioned my competence as a mother to my daughter's doctor. The memory came flooding back. I'd been concerned. Emma had been sick for a week. I thought maybe the doctor pulled me aside afterward, Stephanie continued, and asked if I was being supported at home and if I felt confident in my parenting decisions. She gave me resources for overwhelmed mothers. Because of what you said, Carolyn. You made a doctor think I was incompetent. I was just worried. And the clothes. Stephanie wasn't stopping now. The words were pouring out like a dam had broken. You keep buying Emma clothes. Beautiful, expensive clothes, with tags that say I saw these and thought she needs better quality. What does that say about the clothes I buy her, Carolyn? What message does that send? I just wanted her to have nice things. She has nice things. I buy her nice things, but they're not expensive enough for you, not brand name enough. So you swoop in with your better clothes, your better toys, your better everything, and I'm left feeling like the discount version of a mother. She was crying openly now. So was I. Do you know what Emma said to me last week? Stephanie asked. She said, Mommy, why don't you do things like Grandma does? Grandma makes better cookies. Grandma has better ideas. Grandma knows everything. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'm her mother, Carolyn. I gave birth to her. I nurse her through fevers. I stay up late helping with projects. I work full-time and still make her breakfast every morning. But in her eyes, I'm second best, because you've spent 6 years showing her that Grandma does everything better. That wasn't my intention. I know. Stephanie's voice rose for the first time. I know it wasn't your intention. You love Emma. You love Benjamin. You even think you love me. But Carolyn, your love is suffocating us. Your love is telling us we're not good enough. Your love is running our lives without our permission. She took a shaky breath and continued. I grew up with a controlling mother, she said quietly. My whole childhood was her making decisions for me. What I wore, who I befriended, what I studied. She loved me too. Everything she did was for my own good. And it took me years of therapy to understand that love without autonomy is just another form of control. She looked at me directly. When I married Benjamin, I swore my kids wouldn't grow up like that. That I'd be the kind of mother who trusts her children to make their own choices, who supports instead of directs, who asks instead of assumes. And then I came along, I whispered. And then you came along, she agreed. And I see you doing to Emma exactly what my mother did to me. I see you undermining my authority, second-guessing my choices, helping in ways that teach Emma that Mommy doesn't know best. Grandma does. She closed her journal. That's why I told Benjamin either we set boundaries with you or I'm taking Emma and leaving. Not because I hate you, but because I can't watch my daughter grow up thinking she needs to be controlled and managed and fixed. I can't watch her learn that her mother is incompetent. I never said you were incompetent. You didn't have to say it, Carolyn. You showed it. Every time you reorganized my kitchen, every time you bought something I'd already purchased, every time you gave parenting advice I didn't ask for, every single action said Stephanie doesn't know what she's doing. Stephanie needs my help. Stephanie can't handle this alone. We sat in silence for a long time. The coffee shop bustled around us, people coming and going, living their normal lives while mine crumbled. What do you need from me? I finally asked. Tell me, what would make this better? Stephanie wiped her eyes and looked at me with something that might have been hope. I need you to see me as Emma's mother, not as an assistant who needs constant supervision. I need you to ask before you help, and I need you to respect when I say no. I can do that, I said quickly. Can you? She leaned forward. Because, Carolyn, you've said that before. Benjamin told me. You've agreed to boundaries and then forgotten about them within a week. You say I understand and then nothing changes. We need real change, lasting change, or this is never going to work. I want to change, I said. I mean it this time. I hope so, Stephanie said. Because I love my husband. I want Emma to know her grandmother, but I need to be respected in my own life, in my own home, with my own child. She stood up, gathering her journal. Think about what I said. Really think about it. Benjamin and I have given you a second chance by agreeing to this conversation. But Carolyn, there won't be a third chance. Either things change, or we're done. She walked out of the coffee shop, leaving me alone with my cold latte and the ruins of everything I'd thought I knew about love. I sat in that coffee shop for 2 hours after Stephanie left. Around me, life continued. Students on laptops, mothers with strollers, elderly couples sharing muffins, everyone going about their day while I tried to figure out how I'd gotten everything so wrong. My phone buzzed. Patricia, how's your morning going? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, can I come over? I need to talk. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in Patricia's kitchen again. The same kitchen where a week ago she'd first suggested I might be the problem. They're right, I said before she could even offer me coffee. About everything. I've been controlling Benjamin his whole life, and I didn't even realize it. Patricia sat down across from me. You realized it now. That's what matters. Is it enough? I put my head in my hands. Stephanie told me if things don't change, they're done with me. No second chances. And I don't know if I can change Patricia. This is who I've been for 67 years. People can change at any age, Patricia said gently. The question is, do you want to marry? Did I? The honest answer was I didn't know. Part of me still wanted to defend my actions, to explain that everything I'd done came from love, to insist that they were being too sensitive, too proud, too unwilling to accept help. But another part of me, the part that had spent a week reading old journals and seeing my life from their perspective, that part knew they were right. I think I need help, I admitted. Professional help, because I don't know how to be Benjamin's mother without being this. That's a good first step, Patricia said. That evening I sat at my dining room table with my laptop open. I'd found a therapist, Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, specializing in family dynamics and boundary issues. Her website said she had an opening next Tuesday. I'd booked it. But before then, I needed to do something else. Something I should have done years ago. I opened a blank email and started typing. Dear Benjamin and Stephanie, I've spent the past week thinking about our conversations. And I've spent today crying in a coffee shop facing truths I should have seen decades ago. You were brave to tell me everything you did. I wasn't brave enough to hear it until now. You're right, about all of it. I confused love with control. I confused helping with hovering. I gave and gave and gave, but I never asked what you actually needed. I filled every silence with my voice when I should have been listening to yours. I realize now that I was so afraid of being a bad mother like my own mother was, that I became an overwhelming one instead. Different approach, same result, taking away your autonomy in the name of love. I'm not writing this email to make excuses. I'm writing it because you deserve to know that I heard you. Really heard you. For maybe the first time in 35 years. Here's what I'm committing to: 1. I will not visit unless invited. 2. I will not offer help unless asked. 3. I will not give advice unless you specifically request it. 4. I will respect Stephanie as Emma's mother, not as my assistant or apprentice. 5. I will ask about Stephanie's life dreams and work, not just about Emma. 6. I will go to therapy to work on my need to be needed. 7. I will rebuild trust through actions, not words. But I need something from you too, and I hope you'll understand why. If I'm not welcome as a regular part of your lives, please don't call me only in crisis. Don't use me as an emergency fund when you need money or a free babysitter when it's convenient. I need respect too. Respect goes both ways. If we're going to rebuild this relationship, it needs to be built on equality, not on me being useful only when you're desperate, not on you tolerating me only when you need something. I love you both. I love Emma more than I know how to express. But that love doesn't require daily presence or constant intervention. It requires trust. And I'm finally ready to give you that. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, not waiting desperately by the phone, but living my own life. Learning who I am when I'm not defined by being needed. I've booked my first therapy appointment for next Tuesday. I'm joining a pottery class on Wednesday evenings. I'm reaching out to old friends I've neglected. I'm building a life that doesn't revolve around fixing yours. Not because I don't love you, but because I do. When you're ready to talk again, if you're ready, I'll be here. Different, better, but still your mother. Always your mother. With love and newfound respect, Mom. I read the email 17 times before sending it. Each time I wanted to add something, to soften it, to explain more, to make sure they understood I meant well. But that was the old pattern. Over-explaining, over-helping, not trusting them to understand. Finally, I hit send before I could second-guess myself again. The email whooshed away into the digital void, and I sat there in my quiet house feeling simultaneously terrified and free. I'd done it. I'd set a boundary with my own son, not to punish him, but to protect myself, to insist on mutual respect rather than settling for being useful. It felt wrong and right at the same time. My phone buzzed an hour later. Benjamin. Mom, I got your email. Stephanie and I are reading it together. Can we call you tomorrow? Me. Of course, I'll be here. Benjamin. Thank you for hearing us, for really hearing us this time. Me. Thank you for not giving up on me. I set down my phone and looked around my living room. The knitting basket full of projects for grandchildren. The cookbook open to recipes I made for people who didn't ask for them. The calendar marked with everyone else's appointments, but my own. Tomorrow I would start changing things. I would call old friends, book that pottery class, maybe even try that book club Patricia kept inviting me to. I would build a life that was mine, not built around being needed, but built around being whole. Because Stephanie was right about one thing: love without respect wasn't really love, and I was finally ready to learn the difference. The first morning of no contact was the hardest. I woke at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, the day after sending that email, and my first instinct was to check my phone for Benjamin's usual morning text, the one that hadn't come in 2 weeks. The screen was blank except for a notification from the pharmacy and a spam email about credit card rewards. My second instinct was to drive past their house, just to see Benjamin's car in the driveway, just to catch a glimpse of Emma in her yellow raincoat heading to school. I got as far as putting on my shoes before I stopped myself. No, this was exactly the behavior I'd promised to change. So instead I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and cried for 20 minutes. Then I dried my eyes, opened my laptop, and enrolled in that pottery class at the Portland Community Arts Center. Wednesday evenings, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Beginners welcome, all supplies provided. Next, I called Linda Harrison, my college roommate, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Not because we'd fought, just because I'd been too busy helping Benjamin to maintain my own friendships. Carolyn, Linda's voice was warm with surprise. Oh my God, I was just thinking about you. How are you? We talked for an hour, about her grandchildren in Seattle, her new hip replacement, the book club she'd started with her neighbors. And for the first time in years, I talked about myself, not about Benjamin or Emma, but about me. I've been a terrible friend, I admitted. I let everything else take priority. Well, you're calling now, Linda said. That's what matters. Hey, want to grab lunch next week? There's a new Thai place in Selwood I've been dying to try. I'd love that. We set a date, Thursday at noon. When I hung up, I realized I was smiling. Just a little, just enough. The hardest part wasn't the lack of contact with Benjamin. It was fighting every single instinct I had. Wednesday morning, I saw a sale on organic blueberries, Emma's favorite. My hand was reaching for my phone to text Stephanie before I caught myself. They didn't ask. I don't offer. Thursday, I read an article about childhood reading programs and thought immediately of Emma. Started to forward it to Benjamin. Stopped. They didn't ask. Friday evening, I was folding laundry when I found myself automatically sorting it into 3 piles, mine Benjamin's dress shirts I'd picked up for dry cleaning last month, and Emma's sweater I'd been mending. I stared at those 2 extra piles for a long time. Then I put Benjamin's shirts in a bag to return to him. Later, when he asked for them. If he asked for them. Emma's sweater went into the same bag. Patricia found me that night sitting on my back porch wrapped in a blanket despite the March chill. How are you holding up? She asked, settling into the chair next to mine. I feel like I quit smoking, I said. Everything reminds me of them. Every store I pass, I think Emma would like this, or Benjamin needs that. It's like my brain is wired to think about them constantly. That's not love, honey. That's addiction. I looked at her sharply. That's harsh. Is it? Patricia's voice was gentle. When you can't stop thinking about someone to the point where you have no thoughts of your own, when your entire identity is wrapped up in managing their lives. That's not healthy love. That's dependency. She was right. Of course she was right. So what do? You do what any addict does. You sit with the discomfort. You resist the urge. You build a new life that doesn't revolve around the old habit. And if I can't, you can, Patricia said firmly. You're one of the strongest women I know, Carolyn. You raised a son alone after your divorce. You built a life for yourself. You've just forgotten that you're a whole person, not just Benjamin's mother. My first pottery class was a disaster. I showed up 15 minutes early. Old habit, always be prepared. The instructor, a woman named Maya with clay permanently under her fingernails and the most relaxed energy I'd ever encountered, greeted me with a smile. First time, is it that obvious? You're the only one here with a color-coded notebook and a pencil bag. I looked down at my supplies. I'd brought a 3-ring binder with dividers labeled techniques, projects, and notes, plus a full set of colored pens. I like to be organized, I said defensively. Maya laughed. Honey pottery is about getting messy. Come on, let's get you set up at a wheel. For the next 2 hours, I failed spectacularly. My first bowl collapsed into a lumpy pancake. My second attempt flew off the wheel entirely, splattering clay across my apron. My third looked like something Emma would have made at age 3, and it was wonderful. For 2 hours, I didn't think about Benjamin. Didn't worry about Emma. Didn't mentally plan meals for people who weren't asking for them. I was just present, focused, terrible at pottery, but present. Not bad for a first day, Maya said as I cleaned up my station. Most people give up after the first collapse. You kept trying. I'm stubborn, I admitted. Good, you'll need that. See you next week. Definitely. I drove home with clay under my fingernails and a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Thursday lunch with Linda became a standing date. I can't believe we let 3 years go by, Linda said over pad thai. Remember when we talked every week? That was before Benjamin got married, I said. After that, I don't know. I got so focused on being a good mother and grandmother that I forgot everything else. Including yourself. Including myself, I agreed. Linda studied me over her reading glasses. Can I ask you something? And I want you to really think before answering. Okay. Who are you? Carolyn, not Benjamin's mother, not Emma's grandmother, not Bill's ex-wife. Who are you? I opened my mouth, closed it. I had no idea. I like gardening. It came out as a question. When was the last time you actually gardened for yourself? Not to bring vegetables to Benjamin or to make the yard look nice for Emma's visits. I thought back. I couldn't remember. I like to cook. I tried. For yourself or for others? Well, for others, but what do you like to eat, Carolyn? If you were cooking dinner just for yourself with no one to impress or feed, what would you make? The question stumped me completely. I don't know, I whispered. Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then maybe it's time to find out. That night I stood in my kitchen and made dinner for one. Not Benjamin's favorite pot roast. Not Emma's preferred chicken nuggets. Not anything from my mental catalog of meals my family loves. I made what sounded good to me. Salmon with lemon and dill. Roasted asparagus. Wild rice with cranberries. I set the table properly, not the kitchen counter, not eating standing up, but actually set the table with a placemat and cloth napkin. I poured myself a glass of white wine. I put on music I liked, not the kids' songs I'd grown accustomed to when Emma visited. And I sat down to eat alone. It felt strange, indulgent, almost wrong, but also nice. The salmon was perfectly cooked. The asparagus had a satisfying crunch. The music, Joni Mitchell, an old favorite, filled the quiet spaces. I was halfway through the meal when I realized something. I was enjoying my own company. For the first time in decades, I wasn't eating quickly to get to the next task. Wasn't mentally planning what needed doing. Wasn't waiting for someone to need me. I was just here, in this moment, with myself. It was terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez's office was nothing like I'd expected. Instead of clinical white walls and uncomfortable furniture, it looked like someone's cozy living room. Soft lighting, plants everywhere. A shelf full of books with titles like Boundaries and The Dance of Intimacy. Dr. Rodriguez herself was in her 50s with kind eyes and an easy smile. She offered me tea, then settled into the chair across from me with a notepad. "So, Carolyn, what brings you here today?" I'd practiced this part. "I'm trying to learn how to love my son without controlling him." "That's very self-aware. Tell me more." And so I did. I told her everything. The text message, the conversations with Benjamin and Stephanie, the patterns I'd finally recognized, the fear that I didn't know how to be a good mother without being an overwhelming one. Dr. Rodriguez listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "When you were growing up, how did your mother show love?" The question caught me off guard. "My mother?" "Yes. You mentioned she was controlling. How else would you describe her?" I thought back to my childhood, to a mother who'd criticized everything, who'd told me I'd never amount to anything, who'd made every achievement feel like a failure because it wasn't perfect enough. "She didn't show love," I said slowly. "Not really. Everything was about what I was doing wrong. And when you became a mother, I swore I'd be different. I'd be supportive, encouraging, always there for Benjamin." "Always there," Dr. Rodriguez repeated. "Carolyn, what's the opposite of neglect?" "Being present, being involved." "Sometimes. But taken too far, what does always there become? I saw where she was going." "Smothering." "Exactly. You swung so far away from your mother's neglect that you ended up on the opposite extreme. Different method, same result, taking away autonomy in the name of love." Hearing it put that way made everything click into place. "So what do I do?" I asked. "How do I find the middle ground?" "That's what we're going to work on together," Dr. Rodriguez said. "But Carolyn, the fact that you're here, the fact that you recognize the pattern and are willing to change, that's already huge progress." Over the next week, Dr. Rodriguez gave me homework. "I want you to practice sitting with discomfort," she said. "When you have the urge to help, to fix, to interfere, I want you to feel that urge and not act on it. Sit with it. Write about it. But don't act." It was torture. Every day I had a dozen urges to text Benjamin, to drive by the house, to buy something I thought Emma needed, to share an article Stephanie should read. Instead, I wrote them all down in a journal. March 28th, saw Emma's favorite cereal on sale. Wanted to buy 6 boxes and drop them off. Didn't. Bought 1 box for myself instead. Turns out I like Honey Nut Cheerios too. March 29th, Benjamin's birthday is in 2 weeks. Usually start planning his party a month in advance. Caught myself making a Pinterest board, closed the laptop. He's an adult. He can plan his own birthday. March 31st, had a dream that Emma was sick and no one called me. Woke up in a panic. Resisted urge to text and check on her. She's fine. Even if she's not fine, Stephanie and Benjamin can handle it. Writing it down helped. Naming the urge, recognizing it, letting it exist without acting on it. Slowly, painfully, the urges became less frequent, less intense. I was learning to sit with him. Day 35 fell on a Sunday. I was in my garden, actually gardening for the pleasure of it, when my phone buzzed. "Benjamin, Mom, can we talk at your place?" My heart jumped into my throat. I read the message 3 times. Old Carolyn would have responded immediately. "Yes, when I'll make coffee and those cookies you like," and New Carolyn took a breath, waited 2 hours, then replied, "Yes, Sunday at 2 p.m. works for me." His response came quickly. "Thank you. Just me first." "That's fine. See you then." I set down my phone and noticed my hands were shaking. Not with anxiety this time. With something else. Hope, maybe. Or fear of hope. Sunday at 2 p.m., Benjamin knocked on my door. When I opened it, I was struck by how different he looked. Rested. The dark circles under his eyes were gone. He'd shaved. And he was carrying flowers. Sunflowers, my favorite. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, honey, come in." We moved to the living room. I'd made coffee, but nothing else. No cookies, no elaborate snacks. Just coffee. Benjamin noticed. "You didn't bake?" "You didn't ask me to bake." A smile flickered across his face. "Fair point." He handed me the flowers. "These are for you. An apology for everything. The text, the silence, all of it." "You have nothing to apologize for," I said, putting the flowers in water. "You set a boundary. That was healthy." Still, he settled onto the couch and I sat in the armchair across from him. The same positions we'd been in 5 weeks ago when everything had fallen apart. But this time the energy was different, less desperate, more measured. "Your email," Benjamin started. "Stephanie and I have read it probably 20 times. And it was exactly what we needed to hear. Not excuses, not defensiveness, just acknowledgement, and a commitment to real change." "I meant every word." "I know." He leaned forward. "Mom, we've been in therapy too, couples therapy, and our therapist helped us see that we haven't exactly been fair to you either." That surprised me. "What do you mean?" "We've used you," he said bluntly, "for years. When we needed money, we'd let you help. When we needed a babysitter, we'd call. When things got tough, you were our safety net. But when things were good, when we didn't need anything, we'd pull away, avoid your calls, make excuses. You were trying to establish independence. We were treating you like a resource instead of a person," Benjamin interrupted. "We'd take your help and then resent you for giving it. We'd accept your money and then complain that you were too involved. That's not fair either." I was quiet, absorbing this. "Stephanie pointed something out," Benjamin continued. "She said that boundaries have to go both ways. We can't ask you to respect our space and then call you every time we're in trouble. That's not a relationship. That's just using you. I want to help when you need it." "I know. But Mom, we need to figure out how to have a relationship when we don't need help. How to call you just because we want to talk. How to invite you over just because we enjoy your company, not because we need you to watch Emma or fix something." His words settled over me like a warm blanket. "I'd like that," I said softly. We talked for 2 hours, about the debt they were managing slowly on their own through budgeting and Stephanie's promotion, and Benjamin picking up extra freelance work, about Emma and how she'd been asking about me, about therapy and boundary setting and learning to communicate. "We want you back in our lives," Benjamin said, "but differently this time." "How so?" "Bi-weekly dinners," he suggested, scheduled in advance. At our house 1 week here, the next. "But Mom, if you come to our house, you're a guest, not a helper, not a fixer, a guest." "I can do that." "And if you want to give advice or buy Emma something or help in any way, you ask first. And if we say no, you respect that without making us feel guilty." "Agreed." "And," he paused, looking uncertain, "we want you to ask Stephanie about her life, her job, her dreams, not just about Emma. We want you to see her as a person, not just as Emma's mom." "I've been thinking about that," I said. "I realized I know almost nothing about Stephanie. What she cares about, what makes her happy, what she wants for her future." "She wants to go to pharmacy school," Benjamin said. "Did you know that she told me in the coffee shop? And I was ashamed that I'd never asked." Benjamin's expression softened. "She wants to tell you more, but she's scared. She feels like every conversation with you turns into being evaluated." "Then we'll change that," I said firmly. "Starting now, next time I see Stephanie, I'm going to ask about her certification exam, her school applications, what she's excited about. And I'm going to listen, really listen, without offering advice unless she asks for it." "She'd like that," Benjamin said quietly. "A lot." As he was leaving, Benjamin paused at the door. "Mom, one more thing. Yes, I'm proud of you, for doing the work, for changing. I know it's not easy." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, honey. Stephanie wants to come for coffee next week, just the two of you. Would you be okay with that?" "I'd love that." After he left, I sat on my porch for a long time watching the afternoon fade into evening. For the first time in 5 weeks, I felt something I'd been afraid to feel. Hope. 2 months after that terrible text message, I stood in my kitchen preparing for my first family dinner. The old me would have cooked for 3 days. Made Benjamin's favorite pot roast, Stephanie's preferred salad, Emma's beloved chocolate cake, plus appetizers and sides and backup desserts. The new me made one main dish, herb-roasted chicken, and texted Stephanie, "I'm making roasted chicken. Can you bring a side dish? And would Emma like to help me make cookies when you arrive?" Her response, "Perfect. I'll bring roasted vegetables. Emma would love to help bake. See you at 5. No over-preparing, no trying to do everything, just collaboration." At 4:45, I checked the house one last time. Clean, but not obsessively so. The dining table set simply no fancy centerpiece, no elaborate place settings. Just dinner. Patricia poked her head over the fence as I was watering my front garden. Big night, she asked. First family dinner in 2 months. How are you feeling? Terrified. Excited. Like I'm meeting them for the first time. In a way you are, Patricia said wisely. You're meeting them as equals instead of as people you need to manage. What if I mess up? You probably will. That's okay. Progress, not perfection, remember. At 5:03, Benjamin's car pulled into my driveway. I watched from the window as Emma unbuckled herself. When had she gotten big enough to do that, and ran toward the house? Stephanie was carrying a casserole dish. Benjamin had a bottle of wine. I opened the door before they could knock. Hi, Grandma. Emma launched herself at me. I caught her in a hug, breathing in her little girl scent of strawberry shampoo and playground dust. Hi, sweetheart. I missed you. I missed you too. Mommy said we can make cookies. We sure can. I looked up at Stephanie. Hi. Hi, Carolyn. She held out the casserole dish. Rosemary, carrots, and potatoes. Hope that works. It's perfect. Thank you for bringing it. Our eyes met. A moment of understanding passed between us. We were trying, both of us. Dinner was different. In the past, I would have dominated the conversation, asked Emma a dozen questions about school, offered advice about Benjamin's work situation, commented on the house, the car, the schedule. Tonight, I listened more than I talked. How was your week, Stephanie? I asked as we passed dishes around the table. She looked surprised. It was good, actually. I passed my practice exam for the certification test. That's wonderful. When's the real exam? Next month. I'm nervous. You'll do great, Benjamin said, squeezing her hand. What made you want to become a pharmacist? I asked, genuinely curious, not making conversation, actually wanting to know. Stephanie's face lit up. My grandmother. She was a nurse and I grew up watching her help people. I love the idea of being someone people trust with their health. Plus, the science fascinates me, how medications interact, how bodies process drugs differently. She talked for 5 minutes. I listened to every word, asked follow-up questions, didn't once interrupt with advice or opinions. When she finished, she looked at me with something like wonder. Thank you for asking, she said quietly. I should have asked years ago. After dinner, Emma and I made chocolate chip cookies. She stood on a stool next to me, carefully measuring flour. I guided the measuring cup, but I let her pour it into the bowl herself. Even when she spilled a little, old me would have taken over. Here, honey, let Grandma do it so we don't make a mess. New me said, oops, that's okay. We can clean it up after. What's next? Sugar. Emma consulted the recipe card I'd written out in big letters. Good job reading. Can you measure out the sugar? She did it herself, slowly, carefully. Spilled again. I'm sorry, Grandma. For what you're learning. That's what matters. From the dining room, I caught Stephanie watching us. She was smiling. While the cookies baked, Emma showed me her new reading book. Mommy says I'm getting really good, she said proudly. I bet you are. Will you read me a page? She snuggled against me and read haltingly through 2 pages. Made several mistakes. Corrected herself some of them. I didn't jump in to correct her. Didn't take the book to show her the right way. I just listened and praised her effort. You're doing so well, Emma. I'm proud of how hard you're working. Mommy helps me practice every night. Your mommy is a great teacher. Emma nodded seriously. She's the best mommy ever. She really is, I agreed, and I meant it. As they were leaving, Stephanie pulled me aside while Benjamin buckled Emma into her car seat. Thank you, she said. For what? For tonight, for asking about my life, for letting Emma make a mess with the cookies, for just being present without trying to fix everything. I'm trying, I said. I won't always get it right. None of us do. She hesitated, then gave me a quick hug. Same time in 2 weeks at our place. I'd love that. And Carolyn Emma wants to video call you on Wednesdays after school, just to chat. Would that be okay? My heart swelled. I'd love nothing more. As I watched them drive away, Emma's hand waving from the back window, I felt something shift inside me. This was better. Different, but better. Not the constant involvement I'd once had, but something healthier, more sustainable, more real. 6 months after the text, I woke up on Thanksgiving morning to my phone buzzing. It was a group text. Benjamin, Stephanie, and me. Stephanie, happy Thanksgiving dinner at 3. Carolyn, can you bring your famous pumpkin pie? Emma's been asking for it all week. I smiled and typed back, I'd be honored. See you at 3. Famous pumpkin pie. Emma had been asking for it. 6 months ago, that sentence would have made me cry. Now it just made me happy. I arrived at their house at 2:55 with pumpkin pie and a bottle of wine. The door flew open before I could knock. Grandma! Emma threw herself into my arms. At 6.5, she was getting too big for this, but I caught her anyway. Hi, sweetheart. Happy Thanksgiving. I helped Mommy make the turkey, and I set the table all by myself. I can't wait to see it. Inside the house was warm and full of delicious smells. The table was indeed set a bit crooked with napkins folded in creative lumps, clearly done by Emma's careful hands. It's beautiful, I told her. Stephanie appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron and a smile. Carolyn, hi, can you open the wine? I'm up to my elbows in gravy. Of course. I found the wine opener and worked on the bottle while Benjamin carved the turkey. Emma chattered about her school's Thanksgiving play. Stephanie asked my opinion on whether the gravy needed more pepper. It felt normal, like family. Not the family I'd once tried to orchestrate and control, but a real family. Messy and imperfect and better for it. The doorbell rang as we were sitting down to eat. That must be Mom, Stephanie said, getting up. Janet Morrison came in carrying a sweet potato casserole, followed by her husband Robert with an apple pie. Carolyn, Janet greeted me warmly. So good to see you. You too, Janet. We'd had coffee together once since the intervention, as I'd come to think of it. Janet had been kind but honest, and I'd appreciated it. As we all settled around the table, Benjamin and Stephanie, Emma, Janet, and Robert and me, I realized this was the first time all of us had gathered together without tension crackling in the air. Benjamin raised his glass. I want to make a toast. We all lifted our glasses, even Emma with her apple juice. To family, Benjamin said, looking around the table. Not perfect family, not easy family, but real family. To second chances and hard conversations and people who love each other enough to change. His eyes met mine. Especially to Mom, who's shown us what real growth looks like. I felt my throat tighten. I'm just trying to be better. You are better, Stephanie said firmly. You're amazing. Emma piped up. Can we eat now? I'm starving. Everyone laughed, and the moment passed into the comfortable chaos of passing dishes and filling plates. After dinner, while the men cleaned up Benjamin's insistence, you women cooked, we clean. Stephanie, Janet, Emma, and I sat in the living room. Emma was showing her grandmother Janet a drawing she'd made at school when Stephanie turned to me. I have news, she said, her eyes bright. Good news. The best. I got into pharmacy school. I start in January. Stephanie, I stood and hugged her. That's incredible. Congratulations. Thank you. She pulled back and I saw tears in her eyes. Carolyn, I wanted to ask you something. Anything. The program is intense. 4 years full-time. Benjamin and I talked about it, and with his new promotion we can afford it, but... She paused. We're going to need help. Real help. With Emma. With schedules. With life. My heart started racing. Okay. But I need to know if you can help the way we need you to help. Not taking over. Not managing everything. But being there when we ask. Saying no when you need to. Having boundaries. Yes, I said immediately. I can do that. I am doing that. I know you are. Stephanie smiled. That's why I'm asking. Carolyn, would you be willing to pick Emma up from school on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Just until I finish my afternoon classes, Benjamin can get her Mondays and Wednesdays, but those 2 days... I'd be honored, I said. And I meant it. Not because I was needed, but because I was asked. There are conditions, Stephanie continued. You can't reorganize my house while you're there. You can't buy Emma things without asking. You can't criticize my parenting choices. I understand. And I get to say no. If it's not working, or if we need to adjust, I can say no. Absolutely. Stephanie's smile widened. Then yes, we'd love your help. The right kind of help. Later, as everyone was getting ready to leave, Emma pulled me aside. Grandma, can I tell you a secret? Of course, sweetheart. She wrapped her small arms around my waist and looked up at me with those serious 6-year-old eyes. Mommy told me that you and her had to learn how to love each other better. Is that true? I knelt down to her level. It is true. Sometimes even people who love each other very much need to learn better ways to show it. Like how you don't come over without asking anymore. Exactly like that. I like it better now, Emma said thoughtfully. When you come over, you're happy, and Mommy's happy, and everybody laughs more. out of the mouths of babes. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. And Grandma Mommy says you're going to pick me up from school sometimes. I'm really excited about that. So am I. We can get ice cream on the way home, if your mom says it's okay. I'll ask her. Emma started to run off, then turned back. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, Emma. So much. That night, after everyone had left and I was back in my quiet house, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea. My phone buzzed. The family group chat. Benjamin. Thanks for today, Mom. It meant a lot having you there. Stephanie. Seriously, Carolyn, thank you for everything. For changing. For trying. For being willing to meet us halfway. Janet had added, beautiful family you have here, Carolyn. You should be proud. I typed back, I am proud. Of all of us. Happy Thanksgiving. I set down my phone and looked around my kitchen. At the pottery bowl I'd made still lopsided but mine sitting on the counter. At the book club novel Patricia had loaned me on the table. At the calendar marked with pottery class lunch with Linda therapy appointments. And now pick up Emma on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My life was full, not with managing others' lives, but with living my own. And somehow by stepping back, by giving them space, by learning to be supportive instead of overwhelming, I'd gained something I'd never had before. Real connection, real relationship, real love. The kind of love that didn't require someone to be helpless for me to have value. The kind of love that respected boundaries and celebrated independence. The kind of love that was built on equality, not need. The next morning my phone rang. It was Benjamin. Hey, Mom, did I wake you? No, I'm up. Just having coffee. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He paused. I was thinking about yesterday, about how far we've all come, and I wanted to call you, not because I need anything, just because I wanted to hear your voice. My eyes filled with tears. I'm glad you called. What are you doing today? Pottery class this afternoon. Lunch with a friend. Maybe some gardening. Stephanie's studying. I'm taking Emma to the park. We're good. That sounds perfect. It is. Another pause. I'm proud of you, Mom. Really proud. I'm proud of you, too. Of the father you are. The husband. The man you've become. I learned from you, he said. Both what to do and what not to do. And Mom, that's okay. That's real. Nobody's perfect. No, I agreed, smiling through my tears. But we're better. And that's enough. After we hung up, I sat on my back porch with my coffee watching the November sun rise over Portland. The phone call hadn't been about a crisis, or a favor, or help with something. It had been just because he wanted to talk to his mother. That was love. Real, healthy, boundaried love. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly at peace. Not because everyone needed me, but because I'd learned I was enough just as I was without needing to fix, manage, or control anyone else's life. I'd chosen myself, and in doing so I'd gained my family back. But differently this time. Better this time. The right way.